What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Seoulweaver Show, my little corner of the internet where I share information about life in Korea. And the culminization, I guess, the mixture of the Seoulweaver podcast. I'm sorry, I'll explain why I did that in a minute. The Seoulweaver Current Event Show and the Seoulweaver Random Vlog slash, I don't know, talking things that happen in Korea. So I am late, obviously. Things got a little mixed up. I got new equipment, had to get things together. Don't even know how loud I'm coming through yet. I'm coming through very loud for me, but you guys let me know in the comments if you can't hear anything. And I can actually see those today. Today we're going to talk a little bit about, man, not starting off good. Today we're going to talk a little bit about where I've lived in Korea, like the different places I've lived. I've been here for about 16 years, 15 and a half, and I've lived in a lot of different locations, be it in a city, be it in the country, and I'm going to kind of like go through that list of where I've lived and let you guys know what I thought about those locations at those times. And then after that, of course, we're going to go through the current event show where I talk a little bit about North Korea, of course. Like, how can you not talk about it? But I'm getting tired of talking about it, so it won't be long. But there are some things that I kind of want to point out. And I'll talk a little bit about a new channel or a new, a new station, a new network that's coming to Korea. We'll talk about that a little bit and what I think about that, because it gives me mixed feelings. And then we'll talk a little bit about the Han River and what's going on down there. And then we'll talk about events and things like that. I don't know. We'll just do it up. We're just going to kind of take it really laxed today because it's already started off late. It's already started off with error. And where else can we go from here? Quick heads up. I did get some new equipment. I got a new mic, man. It's nice, but it's been giving me some trouble. And so I had to revert back to my old mic. I also got a new arm stand or mic arm. And just a quick heads up, you're going to see me like move around it like it's on fire because if you touch it just right, it'll just shoot up into the air. And so until I get that worked out or figure out why it's doing that, you'll see me treat it like with the utmost care. What else did I want to talk about really quickly? Hope you guys had a good weekend. I actually got out like a lot this weekend, and it's weird to be talking about the weekend on a Thursday show. Maybe I'll like come in or, all the way into Thursdays, like the day before the weekend. Maybe I'll do something where I talk a little bit about what I had over the weekend and what I wanted to share, things I want to share with you guys that took place over the weekend. But for now, bottle shops in Korea and beer in Korea is like on another level. Than it's on a bigger, larger, grander scale than it's ever been. I love like hanging out, just chilling in a bottle shop with your boy, stuff like that. It's been a pretty great experience. That was not a thing before. That was not something you would experience before. I guess before 2012, maybe. Like that's something within the last 5 years. In any case, let me go ahead and get on with the Seoulweaver podcast. It's no say. Let me go ahead and just get into my notes really quickly because I've lived in a lot of different places in Korea. Again, I've been here with the exception of the year and a half between 2010 and 2012, I've lived here since 2001. And I came over active duty military. If you caught last week's Prepisode, you heard me talk about when I came over and how I lived. I came over active duty Army for the U.S. Army, and that stance or that status kind of made it to where I had to move all over the place just because I had a postal job that could be done from anywhere, or you had to do it in a lot of different locations. And so that kind of enabled me. I mean, it seemed like a curse at the time, but looking back on it, it was pretty awesome that I was able to move around so much and see so many different aspects and parts of Korea. And I want to share that with you guys today. So let's start with the first city in which I lived. That's a little buzz. And And that's Pyeongtaek, Pyeongtaek, good old Pyeongtaek City. And to be honest, I didn't live in Pyeongtaek City. I lived in Anjangri, which is like Ri and Shi and things. They are like the identifiers of what type of district you live in, I guess. And like like a Ri is just like a village, I guess, or a town. And Anjangri is the town where Camp Humphreys is, a little base out there. Well, not little anymore, but I was stationed there and I lived there from 2001 to 2002. It's a small city directly south of Seoul. In fact, let me jump on here and I can show you guys where that is. If you're watching this, you're going to see Pyeongtaek on the map. But I lived when I moved down to Pyeongtaek, I wasn't excited about it because it was just after seeing Seoul, after hearing all the not horror stories, but when you came here in 2001, you heard like weird stories about Korea. You heard how it was basically a third world country and things were still it was still in development. And I was hearing that before I came here. And so when I landed in Seoul, when I landed in Incheon, I was like, yo, man, this place is like lit, man. This ain't like a country. Like, it's not a country of what everybody was explaining to me. It's nice. But when I landed in Seoul, I was pretty excited. I was here for like 2 days. And then they came and grabbed me and moved me down to Pyeongtaek. And if you're watching the video of this, you can see Pyeongtaek on your map. Like it's about 2 hours south of Seoul. But I think that's probably about 60 miles south of Seoul. And Pyeongtaek city itself was one thing, but Anjangri was just a whole different animal. And I don't even know if I can get out to Pyeongtaek or to Anjangri from here. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, Anjangri. Anjangri is like this little village out there that's basically there for the town. And that might not even be it because I don't think it shows up on the map that way. But yeah, good old Anjangri, man. It was the country, like little bitty village with like barely any real, no landmarks or anything like that. It's a small village that was only as big as it was because of the base. And I would assume because other villages in that area or in that general area weren't quite the same size. And what wasn't like the little village itself was like 2 to 3 story buildings and ran for maybe 3 or 4 blocks in either direction off the main street. And other than that, it was just farmland. And so in the town, it was pretty cool. You could do a little shopping. They had their bar districts and things like that for the evening or for the nightlife. But it was all kind of just soldier-esque. And it was like just basically like all the soldiers were out there. And, you had the people that lived nearby and worked there. And you had some people that would come out from time to time. But it was basically it. It was almost, the town was almost an extension of base from time to time. Like essentially an extension of base. But if you went outside of that, it was just farmland. And it was like as far as you can see in either direction, it was just rice paddies. And so it was weird because it would smell really, really bad when they were going through the fertilization process. But once that was over and once the rice started growing, it looked really beautiful. It was like just like a sea of green as far as you can see. I actually posted a picture of something like that in the Seoulweaver's Facebook group. And a few of you saw it. Like it's just green until either you hit the mountains in one direction, green either until you hit the city in another direction, and then green as far as you can see because I think it goes out there to the ocean off in another direction. And it reminded me of the Shire from Lord of the Rings. Like if you've seen it, it had like these rolling hills in the Shire and all these greenhouse tops. That's basically what it was in Pyeongtaek if you were looking out in the countryside. And other than that, out in Anjangri, nothing. Like that was just it. And it just for the most part it was kind of a simple life. You could head into Pyeongtaek City. Now Pyeongtaek City was a little bit different. It was not a big city like Seoul, and it wasn't even a scaled down version of Seoul. Like it was different in its makeup. It was a heavily populated city that had very little outside influence. It was just there. And to be honest, like you had the train station that just ran through the city, not even through the middle, like through like the bottom of the city, I guess, or through the southern end of the city. And then like you had like these streets kind of branch out from the train station. So if you were standing in front of the train station, you were basically looking at the whole city. It had a little bit behind the train station, but for the most part, everything was in front. And this is 2001. It's changed a lot since then. But it went about 20, maybe 20 city blocks out, maybe 30, maybe. And then that was it. That was the city. And it was kind of like made up like, I want to say like a tiny version of LA, right? Like you had your big downtown area where you had like your actual tall buildings and things like that. And they weren't tall like they are in Seoul, but you had like your city, your downtown area and city hall and things like that. And then the rest was pretty flat. And there was a lot to do out there because it was a populated city. But for the vast majority, when we wanted to go do something, we wanted to get out, we would either go to Osan, because Osan itself is a decent sized town that's about 30 minutes away from Pyeongtaek, or you just get on a train, get on a bus, and go into Seoul. And once I first went into Seoul, the first time, my best friend was stationed in Seoul. Once Anthony invited me up, I came up to Seoul every chance I got. And I very, very rarely ever stayed out there in Pyeongtaek. I did go back to Pyeongtaek a couple of times since then, though, so we'll come back to that later. So after 2002, I was told that I had to move. So I moved from Pyeongtaek, which I was, kind of excited to be just moving out of there because there was nothing to do. But I moved to a town or a city called Wonju. And Wonju, like if you think Pyeongtaek is a small, nothing to do location, Wonju is this tiny little city way out east of Pyeongtaek and Seoul and everything like that. This little bitty city just right out there in the middle of the mountains, basically. And it's a decent sized city, I guess, but it was super, super Korean. Like it's just a Korean city. I mean, it's what you would expect if there's like nothing really else influencing it out there. So it had like the same makeup of Pyeongtaek City, but maybe just further out, just more out of sight, out of mind. So it had older buildings. It looked just like Pyeongtaek, but just older. All buildings were like 5 stories or below. And the same makeup, the train ran through and the city branched out away from the train station. So if you were standing in front of the train station looking out, you would see basically the whole city. But it was spread out over a long distance. Like it was pretty far out. And I wish I knew like exactly how many miles it went out, because I never did really explore Wonju City that much because I was always afraid of getting lost. It wasn't like Seoul, and neither was, Pyeongtaek was kind of the same. But Wonju had a different esque to it. It was like if you're in Seoul, especially in Yongsan-gu, you're not going to get lost because you can look up Seoul Tower and you don't have to worry. And there's so many landmarks that you'll recognize that you're not worried about getting lost. But when I was out in Wonju City, especially when I was out there by myself, I would be really worried about, thinking I'm heading back toward where I live and being like on a bus off in a completely different direction. And that kind of was the reason I didn't do too much in Wonju. Now I did get out there and do a little bit. They did have their little bar district. So, we get with the soldiers and you go out there and you'd be in the bar district at night, but it'd be completely different from Pyeongtaek. Like Pyeongtaek was there for the soldier, or Anjangri seemed like it was there for the soldiers. But if you were out in Wonju, that's the first time I was out where I was just like, just like 3 or 4 of us out there and everybody else there is Korean. And you're just kind of visiting and kind of hanging out. And it was the first kind of introduction of actually being there and having that Konglish conversation where you meet someone who can speak a little bit of English and you can speak a little bit of Korean, and you guys keep trying to talk back and forth. And you like the challenge of getting over the language barrier was just interesting. Particularly when you got a little few drinks and both of you like could speak the language even better than you could when you first met. So it was a nice little place to be out there. The countryside in Wonju was different. It wasn't like Pyeongtaek where it was all flat and you had like rice paddies as far as the eye can see. It was mountainous. It was like mountain region and woods and things like that. So it wasn't that much farmland out there, which was pretty cool because when you got out, there was a couple of times where I went with a friend and we got out of the city and just took a bus that went out to the country as far as it would go and rode it all the way back. And one of those times we took a bus out there we were in this small town. It's the first time I had ever seen a town like this, really ever. But it was a small town that was like one street and then a couple of shops on the right side, and then like a couple of cleaners and like the bare minimums on the left side, and a park. And that was it. That's all that was in the town. Everything else was people's houses, like was residential areas, but they were living out like in the sticks. And then there was farmland there, but it was like really, really small farms. And I remember seeing a old beat up train, like a bridge, and it like had this train bridge, and it had this big arch in the middle, and a very small road where people could drive through. Like we couldn't fit two cars there at the same time, like a single lane road that went out further into the country. And I remember looking at that and saying, that's nice, and I wish I had taken a picture of it. But I thought it was an abandoned bridge, like they don't use it anymore. It looks how old it is. They can't use it. But the train that I would take out to Wonju came riding across that bridge while we were there. And I was like, wow, they might need to repair that thing. That's pretty crazy. It looks like it's going to fall apart. But it was beautiful. It was just really nice and serene out there. I'd like to get back out that way and see what it looks like now, but I don't think I could even find my way back to that spot. I didn't know exactly where I was going or how I even ended up out there. But it was something different. That being said, I didn't stay in Wonju like on the weekends at all. I either came out on Friday night, it's just nothing short of being stuck on base for some reason, or being stuck at the job for some reason that I couldn't help, would keep me there. Like I would get out of Wonju every chance I got. And I remember taking the buses. I would take that's how I learned how to take the express bus. So I learned a lot in Wonju, but I learned to navigate the express bus and get in the express bus terminal here in Seoul and then navigate out there. The funny thing is, Wonju is so like off the grid that when I tried to catch a train the first time, I went to Seoul Station to ask for a ticket to Wonju, and they were like, there's no trains that go from here to Wonju. You have to go out to Cheongyeongni Station and then take the train from there. And I was like, whoa, like how crazy is it that there's no train that goes from Seoul Station, like the hub of transportation, doesn't have a train that goes out to this place? Where am I? I also remember getting lost. I also remember taking the last train out to Wonju, falling asleep on the train because it was maybe 1:30 in the morning, missing my stop and waking up in a panic, like somewhere that I didn't know. In hindsight, I probably was in Pyeongchang, where they're going to have the Olympics next year. But I was lucky enough to be able to catch the last train coming back up the other way. I didn't know what I was going to do that night, man. That was probably the first time I ever really been afraid of what's going to happen to me here in Korea. That was all alone on a train in the middle of the night, in the middle of the country. And I didn't speak Korean like I do now, I didn't speak as much Korean as I do now. I don't really speak Korean, but I can get myself like in it. I can get myself around now versus back then. I just didn't know anything. And so that was Wonju. It was the bases that I was on back at that time, they're closed down now. They're not even there. I don't know what would bring me out there other than to just kind of go check it out and see what it looks like now and see how different it appears to me now. I remember there was a McDonald's out there at an E-Mart. I used to ride the bus. That was the thing to do. If I was stuck there, I would ride the bus out to E-Mart, get McDonald's, and then just come back home. That was what I did for fun out there. Probably missed out on a lot of stuff, but not as much as this next place. So after I went to Wonju, or after I left Wonju in 2002, was it 2003? I went to Suwon. And Suwon was a different animal. It was what I've said about Pyeongtaek and what I've said about Wonju kind of thrown together. Like, it was a heavily populated city spread out over a great distance, but they didn't build up as much in Suwon as they do here in Seoul. And the city of Suwon seemed like there was a ton to do. There was a lot going on. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to experience much of it while I was living there, because almost the moment I moved, like almost the month that I moved into Suwon, they built another subway. They expanded the subway station from Seoul out to Suwon. So I could literally walk out of the base I was on, get onto the subway, and then just make my way out to Seoul without any resistance whatsoever. Just get on, go to sleep, and then wake up in Seoul. And that was almost, it was almost, I want to say it was just new. It was just a new experience. And so it was so easy to just to get out of the city or get out of Suwon and get into Seoul, I didn't do anything in Suwon. I didn't hang out there. I don't know. I just would just go to Seoul every chance I got. Sometimes even if I was going to be out there just for the night, I would go out there and then come back first thing in the morning. And I kind of regret that about Suwon because I've heard a lot about the history there. And I did see, while I was there, I did see that they had like this wall that went around the city. I heard that it's the first city that was actually designed in Korea. And so they designed the inside of the castle walls or palace walls, and then they designed the outside of the city or something along those lines. I hear that the previous king of that area, or the emperor or whoever ruled that area, he was the son, I think, of King Sejong, the one who's on the 5,000 won bill here in Korea, who invented Hangul, or who gets credited for inventing Hangul. But I hear it was one of his sons or something like that was out there, and he was really gifted in his architectural prowess, and so he built up the city like pretty amazingly. And so even to this day, you still see people going out on tours out there. And I missed out on all that while I was living there. A terrible thing to do. But I lived there for a short time. And Suwon didn't have like farmland, like you didn't run into countryside. It was just this huge, massive city. Again, not built up as high as they do in Seoul, but sprawling out like extremely far, and with the infrastructure and things like that. I do remember being in Suwon when World Cup came in 2002. I must have been visiting there. But the street, like it was designed like Korean streets or Korean cities have a lot of similarities in their design. And if you've been in Seoul, Korean neighborhoods have a lot of similarities in their design. You'll be in one location and think you're in another because it looks just the same. But it had that same setup where the train station was going across, and if you were standing out in front of the train station, it just kind of sprawled out. You were just right there in the city, except for it was kind of in the middle of Suwon versus being on the outskirts or the edge of Pyeongtaek and Wonju. But Suwon, I was there for World Cup, and it went, like, people went absolutely bananas when World Cup came here in 2002. Great stories at that time. I think I don't have anything recorded. I had one recording, me just walking out and talking to people 1 minute, and then the next minute, like once we were out partying, it's just chaos on the actual video. Like you could tell, I just said, forget it, man. I'm not gonna hold it. I'm just gonna get out there and have a good time. And I must have thought I turned it off and never did. But the first time I saw people go crazy was in Suwon. We were in E-Mart, and we were shopping, and the whole store was just shaking with people cheering. And Korea was in the World Cup playing somebody, I can't remember who, and they won. And the traffic outside just ground to a halt. And I remember looking at bus drivers that just turned off the bus and sat still because there was no going anywhere. And that's pretty awesome. Really wish I had gotten pictures of that. After Suwon, I moved to I didn't show you guys Suwon on the map. After Suwon, I moved to not really a city, but it's a gu. It's actually a district within a city. It's a district within Incheon. And I moved from Suwon right here, a large city just south of Seoul, to out here to Incheon and to a place called Bupyeong-gu. And Bupyeong was probably, I think, some of my best times in that early phase, or in that early, I kind of see Korea in phases, or I see it in eras. And some of my favorite times were in Bupyeong in that era, because that was when I kind of got really comfortable in Korea, and I was hanging out and just I was able to just, walk around and do me in Korea. I would take, Bupyeong's about an hour, maybe a 45-minute subway ride outside of Seoul. And I would go on the subway and just randomly get off near Bupyeong and just walk out into a random stop and just get like samgyeopsal and soju, or go to a beef and leaf place, Korean barbecue place, and then just chill. I was just that comfortable. I was like, Korea was slowly becoming home by that time, or becoming on the same level of being comfortable here as I was at home. And Pupyong itself was a nice sized city, or whatever it's called, a nice sized district. It was basically just a scaled down version of Seoul. And I mean that in like every sense. Like there was enough to do there. There was enough to go out, and you can go out and party, you can go out and drink, you can go out and shop, you can go out and eat. It was all there, and it felt like the city never really slept, or if it slept super super late, right? And like with shopping, for example, like if you got off at Pupyong Station and went down into the underground, it didn't have a subway there. The station was above ground, but there was this huge sprawling underground shopping area that seemed to go out for like miles. Maybe it went out for about a mile. But let's hit the mic. But it was a nice little shopping area where where they just had everything that they needed. Now I didn't shop there because the vast majority of it was like women's clothes and I don't know, accessories and things and stuff like that. But like people, I remember going there with somebody that was American, and they were like, "Yo, this is a great shopping area." One of the other ladies that was stationed out there with us, she loved shopping down there, and then you had like a decent community of like a decent mix, right? Like you had like all the Korean people that were there, and then you had like English teachers that were from all over the place, just like you do here in Seoul. You had like this expat community there, small, but still there and in effect. And it wasn't full of bars or it was full of bars, but it wasn't just bars. Like they had actual clubs and dance clubs and things like that where you can go in and kind of like they had this hip hop club called Oofbird. I wonder if it's still there, but it was like this super underground hip hop joint, and like the owner knew. By the time I was there, me and Uni had gotten back together, and she knew the owner there, and like they knew each other just because they were so deep into hip hop back in the day when it was hard to get a hold of hip hop here in Korea, before like Napster and before you could just download it from the internet. That they had this like pretty small clique of people who liked hip hop music and did a lot of sharing and things like that, and with CDs and stuff like that, and they actually knew each other's handle and things. So it was great to be out there. Great places to eat. Like a few different favorite restaurants out there. People were nice. So like I don't know. There was I don't know. It was just a nice place to be. And then when you factored in the military aspect of it, because I was still active duty military, it was it was like a small tiny base out there. We just basically out there on our own. And if you didn't cause any trouble, there wasn't going to be any trouble. And you were away from the command and all these people that are going to be trying to tell you what to do and how to live. Nice work-life balance, because I went to work at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I got off at 11 o'clock in the morning. So that was like your 8 hours knocked out really, really quick. And then you could go off and do whatever you wanted. Burning up in here. It was just, were just happy times there. And I wasn't there that long, man. As soon as I got there, as soon as I got situated and started enjoying myself, they moved me to Seoul. Now, I wanted to live in Seoul. The thing about Pupyong is that it's a quick ride out from Seoul. I can get up here anytime I wanted to. So I didn't need to be in the city, like in the middle of it. And it was a bit of a trade-off because the military here in Seoul it's run pretty unique. It's unique in the way it's run. A lot of last-minute things, a lot of top-heavy rank people coming down and getting all involved in, operational level things and stuff like that. So it was not ideal to live here. Like Pupyong was the ideal place to live. It moved me here against my will. But I fell more in love with Seoul when I moved here. Like the things that I would have to travel out 40 minutes or 20 minutes on the subway, I could just go out and do it and then go back home. So I really did appreciate being here. But it definitely I think that's the decision that made me get out of the military. So right then, 2004 to 2006, I lived here in Seoul, got out the military, and stayed here and taught English. That's a story for another time, because my experience teaching English, I would like to share that with you guys. But I do want to bounce that off some other English teachers and see if they experience the same thing. Shortly after getting out of the military and living here in Seoul, things got different. Things changed up because I didn't just live on the base, like in the city now, or from that point on, I didn't live on base ever again. That was 2006. So I had to live off base, and that's when I got the real induction of apartment hunting and paying bills in Korean and things like that. So that was probably the time where I really started to like accept, I don't know, when I really started to interact with like the communities in Korea, and more so than just like, shopping or hanging out and drinking and stuff like that. Like I actually started like having to take my like my TV to the repairman down down on the corner and things like that. And we lived in Huamdong. That was pretty cool because Huamdong had like a nice little community right there. And that's a little dong, a little small area here in Seoul. After that, we moved back to Pyeongtaek. Pyeongtaek was every bit of the same things I've explained previously. But shortly after Pyeongtaek, we were there for a year. In 2009, we moved to Waegwan, and Waegwan's way, way down south. I don't even know if I should even like go through and try to find it. It's so far down there, but Waegwan's way, way down south, little small town north of Daegu, and Wagon was a different experience. It was really quiet. I personally got the chance to like really focus on what's important. And that's when Uni and I decided to have a little will, because it was, by that time, things were, I went way too far. By that time, we were kind of calming down. We had been married for 5 years, and, we could really comment, or we had learned a little bit about each other. In fact, I am, if you're watching this video, I am centered on Chilgop now. That is where Little Will was born. And Waegwan is oh my God, right there. Good old Waegwan. Waegwan up. Another little small town, another really small, like one city or one main street through the town, and everything else was just outskirts of that main street. We were there for a year. I really liked it. And I was able to focus on what was important. So we got really close with our family. That's why I always credit Waegwan for like kind of like helping us strengthen the relationship between myself and my wife and my mother-in-law, because that's when I decided like, hey, I'm not gonna let my mother-in-law live anywhere else. She's gonna live with us. I'm gonna take care of her. We all grew a lot closer out there because there's less distractions, because there's really not much to do. I mean, they had their it was just like Pyeongtaek where they had their, or just like Anjongri where they had a little strip out there that was basically there for the base and the soldiers on the base and things like that. So they had their bars and their party places and stuff like that, little restaurants. But other than that, it was just the country, and you were just hanging out there in, God knows, like just really in like nice. How do I want to explain it? Like nice, like in this nice little saddle of this mountain, and it would look beautiful when it rained. It was like clouds, like settling, like kind of sitting down on the mountain tops and things like that. It looked like a volcano frozen in time. Cool stuff. Cool place to live if you have a family. We actually took a trip back out to Waegwan recently because there was a job opportunity out there. And since I got there, or since the house wasn't there, it was extremely inconvenient. Extremely inconvenient because there's nothing out there. So if your home isn't there, it kind of sucks. So not looking forward. Wouldn't jump at the opportunity to move out there. I think Seoul has kind of spoiled me, and that was pretty much it, man. I think I've been other places for short periods of time. For example, I took like trips down to Busan, had to stay there for 30 days, up north to Uijeongbu and Dongducheon, those areas up there. But I never lived up there, but I had to travel up there for work and do things all the time. I might compile a list of those and kind of go over them for you. But that pretty much sums up those places that I lived and that I have fond memories of nostalgia when I hear people talk about those locations. So that's all I got. I'm going to chime out and finish and close out the podcast here. Comment if you've lived in any of these cities, or if you've heard of these cities, if you have friends who taught English in Suwon, for example. That's kind of a big English hub. Or if you know me and used to live in Pupyeong with me, then go ahead and comment and say something crazy for old time's sake. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here on the podcast, take a quick break and like wipe the sweat off my brow and start off with and go ahead and continue on really quickly with the current events and the upcoming event show. So let's go ahead and take a quick break. I will be right back with you guys in just a moment.
지금 이 떨림이 네 표정이 날 너무나도 힘들게 하네. 지금 이 분위기 이 느낌이 우릴 하나로 만들 것 같아. Baby let me go, let me go, baby let me go, no no no, let me go, baby just up and down, up and down, baby up and down, baby up and down. 태비의 술병은 다 비었고 우리 말 없이 서로만 바라보네. 방 안에서 네 입술이 제일 빛나서 나도 모르게 너에게 가까워져. 네가 눈 감을 때 yeah, 내 품 안에 너를 안을게 yeah, 부끄러워하지 않아도 돼. 이제 가보자고 내 침대 yeah, yeah, yeah. 떨림이 네 표정이 날 너무나도 힘들게 하네. 지금 이 분위기 이 느낌이 우릴 하나로 만들 것 같아. Baby let me go, let me go, baby let me go, no no no, let me go, baby just up and down, up and down, baby up and down, baby up and down. 점점 빨라지는 리듬에 네 노랫소리는 점점 커지네. 너의 어리로 나와 춤을 추네. 빨개진 네 얼굴로 나를 쳐다보며 하는 말은 더 세게 oh, baby.
We are back with the what is this? With the keeping it light round, man. I think this is the second half of the show. We're gonna go over. Excuse me. We're gonna go over real briefly over some current events. I don't have that many to really point out. Just a few things I wanted to touch on with North Korea, and I want to go over that really quickly because I really am tired of talking about this. To be completely honest, I think regardless of what happens next week, we're gonna like minimize the North Korea talk and the Trump bashing, I guess this was some would call it, but that's next week, not this week. So I'm seeing a bunch of articles, obviously, about what's going on with North Korea and what their reactions are. And I mentioned this earlier that it seems like they have a throw it at the wall and see what sticks method towards approaching Trump. And you really can't blame him, man. What's gonna work? Like, you never know, and he's something different every day. We'll get to that in a minute. But here you see Kim Jong-un concerns over U.S. grid security rise as North Korea threatens EMP attack. And just to see, we already have an example of what the loss of energy, how dangerous that can be. In this article, I didn't read it all the way through because, quite honestly, I'm tired. I am tired of reading about bad news, man. I'm just getting to the point where I'm just like, okay, I'm going to put it to the side, come back and read it all later and catch up. But, yeah, I'm fatigued. But I did see that they said it can put down it could take out 90% of the population with a successful EMP attack. Did I read that right? I'm surprised. Why am I doing a double take on that now? I didn't do a double take when I read it. But it's Fox News article, if I remember correctly. But it's just basically saying like it's just another threat from North Korea. It's another response, and this is in response to Donald Trump, of course, saying that he'll destroy. We talked about it last week, that if the U.S. is forced to defend itself, it will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. And if you totally threaten to destroy a nation, this might be the response you get. In addition to this, people in Hawaii have been told to prepare for nuclear attack. Goodness, man. Like, it's just, I mean, that's an EMP attack on the U.S., a nuclear attack or a missile launch, at least, to Guam, and a nuclear attack threat to Hawaii. I love Hawaii, man. I don't want to see nothing happen to Hawaii. Hasn't Hawaii been through enough? Oh yeah, man. I mean, this is kind of what you get when you threaten to destroy an entire country. I mean, Kim Jong-un. This video is actually of Kim Jong-un coming out and basically saying, after hearing Donald Trump's speech at the UN, he's convinced that he made the right decision. And of course, he's got to double down on what he's been doing. Now, he double, triple, quadruple, quintuple down on what he's been doing. He's convinced that he's got to follow this path to the last. The reason that's important is because it came directly from Kim Jong-un. So that's Kim Jong-un talking to a camera, to the people of DPRK, like directly. And that holds a lot more clout than a general saying that he's going to talk to Kim Jong-un about doing something. It's Kim Jong-un saying he's going to do it himself. And if you know how the setup is in North Korea, they haven't just pitched him to the people of North Korea as a leader, as their political leader, as their president, or as their ruler. He has the idea of divinity is linked to them in DPRK, in North Korea. Like, they think of him as divinity. Whether they really believe it or not, I'm not sure. I think he had something earlier this year where he said, I'm tired of sarcastic responses to what I'm saying. So he banned sarcasm. So maybe they know the truth, or maybe they know he's not divinity, and they know he does in fact poop, and that he couldn't shoot in a bullseye at 2 years old, or whatever the story is. But when he comes out and says something, that means that's kind of the country saying this is going to be our goal, and him backing down from it is not going to be. It's going to be something that he's not going to back down from as simply as he was when they talked about Guam, when he had his Ministry of Defense talking about shooting a missile at Guam. There's a big difference between the two, is what I'm trying to get around to. And I mean, I said I'm going to gloss over this. It's just, this is what you get. This is what happens. There's a chance, or it has to be thought of, that there's a chance that this might happen if you threaten to destroy an entire country. Last thing I want to talk about on North Korea. North Korea taps GOP analysts to better understand Trump and his messages. Do you know what that means? Like, that is North Korea basically listening to Trump, getting the translations. That can't be what he means, right? Like, he can't mean what he's saying. That's the president of the United States. That can't be his stance. Or that's them getting his messages and saying, like, that doesn't make any sense. He just said something contradictory to that last time. So I know, I'm sure, like, in my head, I have this mentality of people in North Korea being like, we might need to get somebody to help us understand what he means, because no U.S. president has said that before. No U.S. president has gone to the lengths, or they don't normally talk like us. They don't normally talk of fire and brimstone, or fire and fury, and totally destroying a country. That's barbaric. That's not something that the U.S. would do, or something that the U.S. would say. At the UN, like, we need somebody to help us. Like, translations, he can't mean what he's saying figuratively and literally. We need to find an analyst to kind of give us an idea of what he really means. And it's just crazy to think that North Korea is like that. like it's like they're trying to find a back door to talk to Trump because there's no diplomacy. There's no one's dedicated. Like no one's assigned to be the official diplomat between the U.S. and North Korea. Now I mentioned last time there was someone selected for the job, but he obviously hasn't been posted yet or hasn't been put in a position appointed yet. So I mean, they had a few examples in this article, which I will of course link up in the description. But there was some Bruce Killinger from the Heritage Foundation was one of the people that they approached, and he basically said, "I'm not going to do it. I don't want to. If you want to figure out what the administration is saying, what the administration of the United States is saying, then you need to go talk to the administration." I don't know how I feel about that because it's like, well, what? Like, go talk to who, man? They all, like, we can't talk to Rex Tillerson. He's saying something different than Donald Trump. We can't talk to Nikki Haley. She's saying something different than Donald Trump. And then the next day, Trump comes out and says something completely different from what both of them say. And then now they're saying the same thing. But then Donald Trump is liable to come out and change his mind. I do agree that a DPRK or that North Korea should be going. I don't know why I'm calling them DPRK today. I do agree that North Korea should be going and I don't know if they really want to find out what Trump is doing, like find a way to reach out directly to him. I don't know what that'll get you. I'm wondering what Trump is doing. I don't know if I would reach out to him. I'm gonna go talk to this Klingner guy and see if he can tell me what he's doing because I don't quite get it. And then everybody I meet that supports him, like their renditions of what he's saying is that he's doing what everybody should have been doing the whole time. I don't agree with that. It could be wrong. So that's enough of North Korea and Trump. I'm going to get off of that topic and get on to another one that's a little strange. And this is about BET. BET channel makes Asia debut with launch in Korea. So like this is a kind of a mix of the current events show and social media. This is an article that I saw on social media in the Brothers and Sisters in South Korea group on Facebook. And the answers or the comments in the comment or what they said in the comment section is basically what I was thinking. Like, oh, cool. They'll get like, Koreans will get like an idea of what, of black culture, if BET comes here. But I ain't watched BET in a long time. And like the last time I watched it, there's a bunch of shows that didn't portray black people in such a positive light. Like it was just the stereotypical like Madiva stuff. Like I never watched anything Madiva ever. Like why do we want people? Like do we want random Korean people just Korean people that probably love black culture and love like hip hop and black style and fashion and things like that? And do you want them watching BET and thinking everything on BET is what black people are? Because I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not too pumped about that. I ain't watched it in a long time, man. It could be some good stuff on there. I'm not sure. You guys let me know in the comments, man. I really do want to know what people think about, like, what would these, I mean, this is a country where it's acceptable to, like, be in blackface on TV. Do you want them being in blackface on TV and acting like characters in Madiva or in, like, the shows that you see on BET? Like, I hope they cherry pick the content that they send out to Korea, because I'm very understanding when it comes to like the fact that like when I see people do something like blackface, they don't know it's offensive. Like I'm a little lenient in that. I've been here since I was 19, bro. Like I know they don't know, and some people take that stance of where they're saying like, oh, well, you can look it up on the internet. Man, how you know to look up whether something offends somebody on the internet? Like, how do you just be like, oh, I'm gonna go in blackface today. I wonder, is that offensive to people? Let me go check and see. I don't think they know. I don't think they would think to look it up. And then whatever else, like there would be so many things that would be offensive if they tried to mimic things that you see on BET. Like that would just upset people if they try to mimic it on Korean TV. I don't think it's a good idea, man. The more I talk about it, the more I've convinced myself. Like I want to see a black entertainment network expand, but I want them to like produce good content. Like I want them to show like what life was for me growing up, right? Not like what life is for the most stereotypical. I don't don't know. I'm curious to see what everybody else thinks, though. So you guys let me know in the comments. Move on to the next one. This is actually a post or an article in the Korea Times, and it's pretty cool. It seems like they're doing a segment where they let foreigners tell their story, my soul story about living in Seoul. Which, if this is legit, I might write in and see if I can kind of tell a quick story or something along those lines, or maybe I can just send in some, I don't know, footage or something like that. But winding down by the Han River, and this hits so close to home. The Han River is in walking distance from me. This is actually a Swedish author, who I will definitely link up in the description. I just forgot his name. It was kind of unique. I hadn't seen it. It's a Swedish writer who kind of talks about how he invited a sister from Sweden to go, come to Korea, and the first thing she wanted to do was do chicken and beer on the Han River. And just reading that in the article, I was like, man, that sounds good right about now. Like, I might head down and get some chicken and beer right now. But there's a lot to do on the Han River. And he started talking about how it's inspired movies and things like that. I'll link the article up in the description. You can read it. I don't want to go into the whole thing here, but I do want to talk about how he did mention something that I did want to talk about. And like when I got here in 2001, I remember hanging out with a good friend of our mutual friend of me and Uni's, the one who actually introduced me to Uni. I remember hanging out with her, and we were talking about the Han River, and she said, if you fall in there, I wouldn't touch you ever again. Like, I wouldn't even talk to you ever again. It's polluted, it's dirty, it's gross. It's a city, it's a river running through the middle of the city, and that kind of tends to be the case with rivers running through cities. But it looks like there was a 20-year effort to clean up the Han. And I have noticed that now when you go out there, you see people paragliding, you see people on the jet skis and stuff like that. You see people hanging out in the river, and they're slowly like developing like different parts of the river. And you always have your Yeouidos and your Banpo bridges and things like that. Those have been developed already. And there's like parks dotted all along the river, from one side to the other, really. And they're starting to develop it even more. So like I remember walking down to the river maybe 2 months ago, and like the whole section where I was going to take a walk and kind of reflect and relax was under construction. And you go down there now, and they hooked it all up, and they set it up to where it's, they got like nice walkways. People are down there riding their bikes. People are down there running. They're having picnics. You got Food Truck Friday or something down there. You got like food truck events over there. We were down there again at Banpo Bridge at the Global Food Festival in Seoul. And, food trucks and beer festivals down there. They just do all kind of stuff. And it's a pretty great place to go down there and unwind. I'm going to head down there this weekend, I think. And the picture you're looking at here, if you're watching this on video, is of a skateboard championship that they're doing down there. And people are riding down on the skateboard park. They're slowly developing it. I've done like mass water gun fights, water balloon fights down there on the Han River. It's a great place to hang out if you pay attention and see what's going on down there. So I did want to share that. And speaking on the subject of the Han River, while we're on the topic of the Han River, the Seoul International Fireworks Festival takes place this Saturday. So it's on the 30th. I think that's Saturday. So yeah, definitely. It's on the 30th. And this is like an international fireworks show where they come out and I think 6 different countries compete with their fireworks show. I don't know if they ever win, if there's a win or they get prizes and things like that. It's always super packed on the river. But if you can get to a good vantage point, like here in the city, like Yongsan I Park Mall is a good spot. And I'm sure there's a ton of good vantage points that people don't really know is there. We used to be able to see it pretty clear from one of the apartment buildings in our apartments. But we went out there last year to watch it from like the same area. And there's a building there that wasn't there last year. It got built, so we couldn't see anything. So we ran over to Yongsan I Park Mall to watch it. Didn't work out too well. Uni was angry. Did not let me know that watching the fireworks show was that important to her. I found out when we missed it. But if you want to have some details, screenshot this if you want some details. This is Korea Trip QA. Korea Trip Q&A. It's a Facebook group or Facebook page. You can follow them. The link will also be in description. But they have the actual fireworks program there. So it starts at 7 o'clock, ends at 9. Oh, after party and cleanup. Actually, this might be something that they specifically are doing. I'm not sure. I should have read into that. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if that's a party that they're having because they said after party and cleanup campaign. That doesn't sound. That goes from super fun to like, wait, what? You want me to clean up after the party? I don't know if I want to be on a cleanup campaign. They could do that. Okay, whoop, to each his own. I'm sure it's pretty fun. The site to their, that's actually the link to the fireworks show. So yeah, I'm sure it's all, that's not their information. That's the fireworks information. The actual, what's it called? The Hanwha Seoul International Fireworks Festival. Great little event. Excuse me. Great little event. Definitely worth checking out. I'm not sure what we're going to be doing for that. I don't even want to see it. I'm tired of fireworks. It's just colors in the air, colors in the sky. These are really good though. Like if I'm going to watch a fireworks show, I would rather watch this one because of course, since it's a competition, they are putting in work. They have a really elaborate, I don't know what you call it, like scales or performances. Yeah. Really elaborate fireworks performances. And to finish out the Seoulweaver show today, we've got a social media post from my friend Mike. And he posted this funny little thing on there. He said, what is a random thing that gives you anxiety? And this person may not be in Korea, I don't think, but it made me think of Korea when I saw it. Trying to put my change in my wallet at the cash register while people in line put pressure on me just by standing. That is a real thing that happened. Mm-hmm. The family's home, if you haven't noticed. That's a real thing that happens here in Korea. Like, when you pay for something at McDonald's, for example, I've said McDonald's over and over again today, but when you pay for something at a fast food restaurant, for example, you give them your money, they give you your change, and of course, you do feel that little pressure from behind you, from the person behind you, if they're not next to you by that time. But here in Korea, you're also getting that pressure from the person in front of you. The cashier is like, once they give you your change, they're talking to the person next to you. So they don't expect you to stand there and put your change in your wallet. They expect you to, like, when the first time I saw it, I felt like the girl like buzzed me like Chris Tucker on The Fifth Element, just bzz, 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 like, get out of the way. So that's something that really happens here in Korea, and it makes you realize like how much, like, the spirit of Bali Bali, like Bali Bali means hurry hurry, like the spirit of Bali Bali is so real here in Korea that I think it rubs off on you, because even I'm to the point now where if somebody's taking too long to put their change in their wallet in front of me, I'm like, man, move, God, the people are behind you, I gotta go. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't even want to be where I gotta go. But yeah, definitely something different. Almost gave me nosebleeds in Hawaii because everybody is in the spirit of aloha there. It's quite the opposite of being here in Korea. That's all I got. That's all I got for you guys today, man. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. I am, as always, burning up under these lights. This is something that's got to be figured out, man. Like, I am, take a sip of my little, this is some pretty good makgeolli right here. Take a sip of my little drink. I'll be back at 8 o'clock next week, next Thursday, with another Prepisode of the show. We're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to talk about Chuseok next week. What I hope to do one of two things. Either I'll just tell you about what Chuseok used to be and what it is now, or I'll have somebody who's a little older than me talk about what Chuseok used to be like back in the 80s, like pre-88, pre-Olympics Korea, and what it is now. Because it has, even in my time here, it has drastically changed. And I'd like to talk to somebody that's like a little bit older and see what their take on what Chuseok used to be, because the dynamic of Korea has changed a lot. So tune in if you want to hear a little bit about Chuseok. If you don't know what Chuseok is, it's Korean Thanksgiving, and it's the biggest holiday here in Korea. I also had an article to talk about that I didn't mention. Maybe we'll do some testing and talk about that this weekend, because it's about the upcoming events for Chuseok. And if I talk about that article on Thursday, it'll be too late for anybody who hears it or hears about it to take advantage, because they'll be gone. So some great events coming up next week. I got Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off, so I'm taking and then Monday, I got a few days off. The kid's gonna be in school some of them days. I can't wait. I love the fact that I get to hang out with him, hang out with the wife, and then even get my alone time to work on stuff for you guys. I'll see you then, or I'll see you in the next live broadcast. Probably gonna happen before Thursday to talk about that. Till then, stay interlaced. Thanks for joining me, guys. This is Will Brooks signing off.